Background of PhD Modular Access Services. PhD Modular Access Services, also known as PhD Access Ltd or PhD Group Services Ltd, is a company associated with the Dwyer family, which has multiple business entities registered under its name. Among these is PhD Access Properties Ltd, which currently owns Pad Farm, a 32-acre estate located in Egham, Surrey, and has been the subject of significant controversy regarding its use and planning permissions. Pad Farm has a rich history, having been owned by Mr. Beach for over 36 years. It served not only as a family residence, but also as a working farm. The significance of Pad Farm extends beyond its agricultural function. It represents the intersection of local governance, community rights, and corporate interests. The recent transition of ownership to PhD Access has raised questions about the legality of its operations and the treatment of former owners.
Planning permission requirements. In the United Kingdom, planning permission is a legal requirement for certain types of development and land use. This includes changes in land use, construction of new buildings, and significant alterations to existing structures. The purpose of these regulations is to ensure that developments are in line with local planning policies and do not adversely affect the environment or community. Comparison of Mr. Beach's case and PhD Access's actions. Mr. Beach faced severe repercussions for alleged planning violations, including the storage of commercial goods without the necessary permissions. He was compelled to sell Pad Farm to pay £1.4 million in compensation to Runnymede Borough Council and subsequently served time in prison. In stark contrast, PhD Access has reportedly engaged in similar, if not more extensive, planning violations, without facing equivalent legal consequences. This disparity raises critical questions about the enforcement of planning regulations and the potential influence of corporate interests over local governance. Current situation. Mr. Beach's eviction and its implications. Mr. Beach's eviction from Pad Farm has left him and his wife homeless, currently residing in an 18-feet caravan. This situation highlights the personal toll of legal and bureaucratic actions on individuals, particularly those who may lack the resources to contest such decisions. The emotional and financial strain on Mr. Beach and his family underscores the need for a more equitable legal framework that protects vulnerable individuals from corporate overreach. PhD Access's ongoing operations at Pad Farm. Despite the refusal of planning applications to convert Pad Farm into an industrial complex, PhD Access appears to be operating without the necessary permissions. The company has reportedly expanded its use of the land for commercial storage, further complicating the legal landscape. The lack of enforcement against these actions raises concerns about accountability and the integrity of the planning system. Community impact. Effects on local residents and former owners. The actions of PhD Access. They have significant implications for the local community. Former residents, yes, like Mr. Beach, have been adversely affected. Meanwhile, the broader community faces potential environmental, yes, and social consequences from the industrialization of agricultural land. The transformation of Pad Farm from a family-run farm to a commercial storage facility may disrupt local ecosystems and alter the very character of the area. Runnymede Borough Council's role. Runnymede Borough Council has played a pivotal role in the events surrounding Pad Farm. The Council's actions in enforcing planning regulations against Mr. Beach, while seemingly overlooking similar violations by PhD Access, raise questions about fairness and transparency. The Council's responsibility to uphold planning laws must be scrutinised, particularly in light of the apparent discrepancies in enforcement. Conclusion. Summary of findings. The situation surrounding PhD Modular Access Services and Pad Farm illustrates a troubling disparity in the enforcement of planning regulations. While Mr. Beach faced severe penalties for alleged violations, PhD Access continues to operate without the necessary permissions, raising concerns about corporate influence and accountability. Call for accountability and transparency. It is imperative that local authorities, including Runnymede Borough Council, ensure that planning regulations are applied uniformly and fairly. The community deserves transparency in the decision-making processes that affect their lives and environment. A thorough investigation into the actions of PhD access and the Council's enforcement practices is necessary to restore public trust and uphold the rule of law.